You ever get that feeling? When you realize you've been erased from your own family? Yeah, that's how it started for me. The wedding invite never came. No text. No call. Nothing. My sister, the one I shared secrets with under the same roof, was getting married and I was invisible. At first I thought maybe the post office messed up, or maybe I just didn't matter enough. But something about the silence didn't feel right. It was too perfect. So I showed up, uninvited, and what I saw that day made me wish I'd stayed invisible forever. Because sometimes family doesn't just keep secrets, they bury them. If you think you're ready to hear what happened next, you might want to hit that like button. Trust me, you'll need something to hold on to. Growing up, my sister and I were like day and night, but somehow we still fit together. She was the golden one, always smiling, always praised. Mom would call her our pride, and Dad would nod with that proud little grin he never gave me. I didn't hate her for it. Not really. I just learned to live in her shadow, where no one asked questions and no one noticed if I disappeared. She was the kind of girl who got everything without asking. I was the one who had to fight for every ounce of attention, and still I defended her. Every time someone said she was spoiled or selfish, I'd jump in, saying, "You don't know her like I do." Maybe that was true once. Maybe I didn't know her either. Things changed after Dad's health started failing. The family started showing their real faces. Who cared, who didn't. My sister, she cared more about how things looked than how they felt. I was the one holding bills, running errands, sitting beside Dad at the hospital. She'd show up just long enough for a photo and disappear again. When he passed, I expected she'd at least call me. You know, check in. But days turned to weeks, then months. The silence between us grew cold, sharp enough to cut through every memory we ever had together. And then, out of nowhere, I heard from a cousin. Just casual small talk until she slipped. "So, are you coming to your sister's wedding?" My heart froze. "What wedding?" I asked. Her voice went quiet. "Oh, I thought you knew." It hit me like a car crash. My sister was getting married, and I wasn't even invited. No message, no explanation. Just a secret everyone else was in on. For days, I tried to convince myself there had to be a reason. Maybe she lost my number. Maybe she was scared I'd say no, but the more I thought about it, the clearer it got. This wasn't an accident. It was intentional. The family group chat went silent. Everyone dodged questions, and the more they avoided me, the more I started to wonder. What exactly were they hiding? That's when something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to beg for an invitation to my own sister's wedding. I was going to show up, walk through those doors, look every single one of them in the eye, and see what they were so afraid of me seeing. The week before her wedding, my nights became restless. I kept staring at my phone, hoping maybe she'd text me. Sorry, you're still my sister, something. But there was nothing. Just silence, the kind that eats you alive from the inside. I started scrolling through social media, and there it was, her smiling face in a bridal dress fitting, her friends gushing in the comments, our mother standing proudly beside her. I stared at that photo for a long time. I don't know what hurt more, the fact that they looked so happy without me, or that no one even noticed I wasn't there. I tried to move on. Tried to convince myself to let it go, but deep down, there was a voice whispering, "Something isn't right." My sister might have been cold lately, but she wasn't cruel. There had to be a reason they shut me out. So I started paying attention. Little details, dates, locations. The reception hall tagged in one of her friend's stories. A florist posting about the Peterson wedding on Saturday. And each clue felt like a piece of a puzzle no one wanted me to see. At first, I told myself I'd just drive by. You know, just see it from a distance, satisfy my curiosity, and go home. But that plan didn't survive a single night of thinking, because the more I pictured them laughing, celebrating, pretending I didn't exist, the angrier I got. I wasn't after revenge, I just needed answers. And maybe a little dignity. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of my mirror and stared at myself. My hands were shaking, but my eyes looked determined. I chose a simple dress, elegant, but not enough to draw attention. I didn't want to make a scene. I just wanted to see the truth with my own eyes. As I drove, the memories came rushing back. Birthdays, late-night talks. That time we both promised we'd never let anyone come between us. And now here I was, on my way to crash the one day she probably hoped I'd stay far away from. The venue came into view, a fancy garden setup, fairy lights, laughter echoing across the open space. Cars lined the driveway. Every detail looked like a dream. For her, at least. My heart pounded so loud it felt like everyone could hear it. I parked far from the main entrance and walked through a side path. The smell of roses filled the air. Music played softly in the background. I could see guests smiling, posing for photos, glasses clinking, and there she was. My sister, standing in the center, radiant in her gown. But something was off. Even from a distance, I could see it. Her smile, it wasn't real. It was the kind of smile people wear when they're pretending everything's fine. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt fear. As I got closer, I noticed Mom talking to a man I didn't recognize. Tall, older, with a sharp look in his eyes. He wasn't the groom, I knew that much. The way he stood, the way everyone avoided looking directly at him, it screamed tension. A cousin spotted me and froze mid-sentence. Her face drained of color. Then, like a ripple in water, people began whispering, staring, nudging each other. She's here. I kept walking, slow and steady, pretending I didn't notice. Inside, my heart was racing. Every instinct told me to turn back, but my curiosity was stronger. When my sister's eyes finally met mine across the crowd, the entire place seemed to go silent. The music faded, laughter stopped, even the air felt heavy. Her face turned pale. She didn't look angry. She looked terrified. That's when I knew. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't just about a forgotten invitation. Something deeper was buried beneath all the smiles and flowers. And somehow I was standing right on top of it. The moment I stepped into that garden, it felt like the air had changed. People were whispering, but not in the usual wedding chatter kind of way. It was sharper, colder, the kind that crawls under your skin. I could almost hear the sentences forming in their heads. What is she doing here? Why did she come? The music stumbled as if even the band felt the tension. My heels clicked against the stone path, echoing through the silence. I tried to keep my chin up, to walk like I belonged there, but every step felt heavier than the last. I caught my mother's eyes first. She froze mid-laugh, her champagne glass trembling slightly. She didn't smile. She didn't frown, just stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. Then she quickly turned away, pretending to fix her dress, pretending I wasn't standing right there. It was strange how everyone else reacted. Some avoided me completely. Others stared too long, as if they expected me to explode. But no one spoke a word. I thought about leaving right then, saving myself the humiliation. But when I looked at my sister again, I couldn't move. She looked breathtaking. Yes, but also trapped. Her smile never reached her eyes, and when the groom turned toward her, I noticed how stiff her body became. It was subtle, but I saw it. The kind of stiffness that comes from fear, not excitement. He was handsome, in that polished, too perfect way. The kind of man who knows everyone's watching him and enjoys it, but there was something unsettling in his eyes. When he shook someone's hand, he gripped a little too tightly. When he smiled, it never lasted long enough to seem genuine. Then, out of nowhere, a familiar voice behind me whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I turned. It was Aunt Marie, the one who never kept secrets well. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. "Please, honey," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "Don't make a scene. It's better if you go," I frowned. "Why would I make a scene, Aunt Marie? I just came to see my sister." She bit her lip. "Not now, please." Before I could ask what she meant, a sharp sound rang out, a glass clinking on metal. The wedding planner's voice boomed cheerfully, announcing that the ceremony would begin in 10 minutes. Guests started to move toward their seats. The moment was over, but the unease stayed with me like a shadow. I took a seat in the very back row, half hidden behind a pillar of flowers. I could feel my mother's eyes darting toward me every few seconds, like she was checking to make sure I hadn't vanished, or maybe praying that I would. The ceremony started. Music swelled. My sister walked down the aisle, hand trembling slightly as she held her bouquet. She looked straight ahead, but for a second, just a second, her eyes flicked toward me. And what I saw there wasn't shock or anger. It was a silent plea. My chest tightened. What was she trying to tell me? The vows began. The groom spoke first, his voice deep, confident, rehearsed. Every line felt like it was written for a magazine cover, not a marriage. When it was her turn, she hesitated. The pause was long enough to draw confused looks from the guests. She started, her voice shaking. Then she smiled, too quickly. "I do." Everyone clapped, but the sound felt hollow. My stomach twisted. That look in her eyes, it wasn't happiness. It was surrender, and then I saw him, the same older man from earlier, standing near the front, hands folded, watching the ceremony with a smirk that made my skin crawl. He wasn't smiling out of joy. It was pride, ownership, the kind that said, "I made this happen." When the ceremony ended, I slipped out before the crowd could move. I needed air. My heart was racing, my hands clammy. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew it wasn't love holding that marriage together. It was fear. As I stood under a tree, catching my breath, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate, I turned around and saw my mother. She didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, she looked tired. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. "Why?" I asked. "Because I wasn't invited? Or because I wasn't supposed to see what's really going on?" She didn't answer, just sighed and said, "Some things are better left alone." And then she walked away, leaving me standing there in the middle of a perfect wedding that suddenly felt like a crime scene. That's when I decided I wasn't leaving until I knew the truth. The guests moved inside for the reception, laughter echoing through the hall, glasses clinking, the band tuning up again. On the surface it was perfect, too perfect, but once you've lived with secrets long enough, you can feel them in the air, and that night the air was heavy with them. I stayed near the edge of the room, half in the shadows, pretending to look at the decorations. My sister and her new husband were on the dance floor, smiling for cameras, surrounded by people pretending to be happy for them. It looked like a movie scene, only I could see the cracks. Every time he touched her waist, she flinched. Every time someone congratulated her, her smile wavered for just a second too long. Then came that older man again, the one who'd been watching everything. He walked up to my mother, whispered something in her ear, and she nodded quickly, avoiding his gaze. My gut twisted. He wasn't family. I'd never seen him before. And yet, everyone seemed to treat him like he was the one pulling the strings. I needed to know who he was. So, while everyone was focused on the couple's first dance, I slipped toward the back hallway where the staff were carrying trays and clearing dishes. I moved quietly, my heels muffled by the carpet. I didn't really have a plan, just instinct. I knew the truth wasn't out here in the laughter. It was hidden behind those walls. That's when I heard voices, muffled at first, then clearer as I got closer. My mother's voice and my sister's. "Mom, please," my sister whispered, her tone trembling. "I can't do this." "You have to," Mom said sharply. "You know what's at stake." "At stake?" she hissed back. "My life, my happiness. You're marrying me off to someone I don't even—" "Keep your voice down," my mother snapped. "He's done more for this family than you'll ever understand. You'll learn to love him." "Love him?" My breath caught. I leaned closer, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My sister's voice cracked. "You mean you'll make me love him? Like you made me lie about everything? Like you made me pretend Dad's money wasn't gone?" There it was. The silence that follows a confession too dangerous to be spoken aloud. Dad's money. Gone. I remembered the hospital bills, the missing documents, the way Mom avoided questions after his death. Suddenly it made sense. They'd lost everything, and this marriage wasn't love. It was a transaction. My sister was the payment. I stumbled back, my mind spinning. It felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. The family I thought I knew had sold one of their own, to fix their mistakes. Before I could move, a hand grabbed my arm. I turned, ready to scream, but it was him, the older man. His grip was firm, almost painful. "Eavesdropping is a dangerous habit," he said softly, his eyes narrowing. "You shouldn't be here." I tried to pull away. "Let me go." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You're her sister, aren't you? The forgotten one." He leaned in closer, his breath cold against my ear. "Maybe you should stay forgotten." I yanked my arm free and stepped back. My whole body was trembling, but I didn't break eye contact. "You think you can scare me? You already did. Once. When I didn't know what you were." He tilted his head, curious. "And what am I exactly?" I forced a smirk, even though my throat was dry. "The reason she's marrying a man she doesn't love." For the first time, his expression changed. Just slightly, but enough to confirm what I already knew. He stepped closer again, but this time, I didn't back down. "You can ruin me," I said quietly, "but I can ruin you faster. One word, one video, one post. You think people won't listen?" He glared at me for a long moment, then smiled thinly. "Be careful what you threaten, sweetheart. You might not like what comes next." He walked away slowly, calm as ever, while I stood frozen in place. My knees felt weak, my stomach hollow. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. When I finally turned back toward the main hall, I saw my sister standing there, tears in her eyes. She must have heard the end of it. She mouthed one word, "Run," but I didn't run, not yet. Not until I made sure everyone knew the truth. Because if this family thought they could bury me in silence again, they were about to find out just how loud I could be. I walked back into that hall like I was walking into a battlefield. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the fake congratulations, all of it sounded like static in my ears. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like every beat echoed through the room. My mother was standing by the head table, her face pale, whispering nervously to one of my uncles. My sister was beside the groom, her eyes darting toward me every few seconds like she wanted to speak but couldn't. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling, but steady enough to hold the microphone sitting on the table near the stage. No one noticed at first. The music was still playing, people were still dancing. But then I tapped the mic once. Thud. That sound alone stopped everything. The band went silent. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Heads turned slowly, one after another, until the whole room was looking at me. My sister's face went pale as snow. My mother's lips parted, a soft, horrified no slipping out. I smiled faintly. I know, I'm not on the guest list, But seeing how everyone's so full of love tonight, I thought maybe you wouldn't mind if I shared a little truth. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Is this part of the toast?" I laughed, but it wasn't from joy. Oh, it's a toast, all right. To lies, to manipulation, and to the things we hide under the word family. The groom shifted uncomfortably. My mother stepped forward, her voice shaking. "That's enough, sweetheart. You're upset. Let's talk outside." I ignored her. "You all think this wedding is about love. It's not. It's about debt, about desperation, about a deal made behind closed doors." Murmurs spread like wildfire. My sister stood frozen, her bouquet trembling in her hands. The groom glared at me, his jaw tightening. "You should sit down before you embarrass yourself." I met his gaze, unblinking. "Funny. You're the one marrying a woman who doesn't even want to be here. Maybe you should be the one sitting down." A few gasps rippled through the guests. The older man from earlier, the one who'd threatened me, rose from his seat near the front. His smile was gone now. His expression was sharp, dangerous. "This little outburst ends now," he said, his voice low but commanding. I turned toward him slowly. "Oh, it's ending, all right. But not the way you want." I took out my phone. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. You see, when you threaten someone who has nothing left to lose, you make the worst kind of enemy. I recorded everything, every word my mother said, every threat you made. The hall erupted in whispers. People were turning to look at him now. His confident smile faltered for just a second, and that's when I knew I had him. My mother's face crumbled. "Please don't do this," she whispered. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said. "Dad's gone. You lost the money. You needed someone to fix it. So you sold your own daughter's happiness to buy your way out." Someone from the crowd gasped audibly. My sister dropped her bouquet. The groom turned toward the older man, realization flickering across his face. "You knew?" he asked. The man didn't answer. He just glared at me like he could burn me to ashes with his eyes. And then, chaos. My mother crying. The groom shouting. The guests trying to make sense of it all. My sister stepped forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. She grabbed the mic from my hand. "She's right," she said, her voice breaking. "They forced me. I didn't want this. I never wanted any of this." Her confession was like a thunderclap. Every eye in that room turned toward her. For the first time that night, she didn't look scared. She looked free. The groom stormed off, shouting something I couldn't even hear. The older man followed, face dark with rage. The photographers stopped taking pictures. No one knew what to do. My sister looked at me through her tears and whispered, "Thank you." I took her hand. "You don't have to thank me. You just have to stop letting them control you." Then my mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing quietly. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because in that moment, everything she'd built, every illusion of control, every lie she'd told, fell apart right in front of her. The guests started to leave in silence. No music, no laughter, no celebration. Just the sound of truth echoing through the hall. As we stepped outside into the night air, my sister squeezed my hand. "What happens now?" she asked softly. I looked at her, the moonlight glinting off the tears still on her cheeks. "Now?" I said. "Now we start over, without lies, without them." And as we walked away from that hall, the lights fading behind us, I knew one thing for sure. Sometimes, you have to burn everything down to see who still stands beside you in the ashes. When the hall finally emptied and the music died down, I stayed back, sitting on one of the chairs that still had bits of confetti clinging to the fabric. My sister was gone, off to start her perfect new life, and I was left staring at the mess left behind. Funny how weddings are supposed to be about beginnings, but all I could think about was how something between us had just ended. The truth had come out, loud and brutal, right in front of everyone. My parents, her friends, even that man she married. They all saw the cracks she tried so hard to hide. But in that silence afterward, I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. You'd think exposing her lies would make me feel powerful, but all it did was remind me how broken we both were. I looked down at the photo I'd taken earlier, her walking down the aisle, all smiles, veil fluttering. For a moment I didn't see my enemy. I saw my sister, the one who used to braid my hair before school, the one who cried when I fell off my bike, the one who, somewhere along the way, started seeing me as competition instead of blood. Maybe we both made mistakes. Maybe the years of jealousy and resentment just buried whatever love we had under layers of pride. Still, seeing her face when I showed up, it wasn't hatred I saw. It was fear, and maybe regret. She knew she'd lost something too that day. I walked outside as the evening air hit my face, cool and grounding. The sun was setting, painting the sky with the same colors as her wedding bouquet. I could hear laughter from a distance, guests heading to the after party, pretending everything was fine. That's the thing about family. People would rather protect the image than face the truth. But not me. Not anymore. I wasn't going to let secrets define me again. If there's one thing I learned that day, it's that silence only protects the wrong people. Speaking up, even when it hurts, even when it makes you the villain in someone else's story. It's the only way to heal. I know my sister will probably never forgive me, and maybe deep down I don't blame her. But I also know that if I hadn't gone that night, if I hadn't seen what I did, I'd still be wondering why I was never good enough to be invited. Now I know the truth, and sometimes that's enough closure. As I started my car and drove away from the venue, I took one last look in the rearview mirror. The lights from the hall were fading behind me, soft and distant, like a memory losing color. I whispered a quiet goodbye to her, to our past, to all the versions of me that stayed silent for too long. So if you're still watching this, I'll leave you with this. Sometimes the invitation you never receive is the one that frees you. Sometimes being uninvited means being unchained. And who knows, maybe someday she'll understand that too. If you stayed till the end, thank you. Stories like this aren't just mine. They're pieces of what we've all lived through. If it made you feel something, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the quietest people have the loudest truths. You know, as I drove home that night, I realized something I should have known all along. Family isn't always about who shares your blood. It's about who stands beside you when the world turns its back. For years, I kept waiting for my sister's approval, thinking her acceptance would somehow complete me. But standing there at her wedding, watching everything unravel, I finally understood. I didn't need her to see my worth. I just needed to stop forgetting it myself. We spend so much of our lives chasing validation from the wrong people. But peace, real peace, comes when you stop begging to be invited into rooms you were never meant to belong to. That night, I let go of the pain, the resentment, the need to prove anything. I left it all behind, along with the noise, the lies, the silence. So if you're listening right now, remember this. Sometimes being left out isn't rejection. It's redirection. Thanks for staying with me till the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because every story deserves to be heard, especially the ones that start with silence.